Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple different bounce back spots. I mentioned Josh Allen off the top of the show, but I mean, I think the Dallas Cowboys are definitely due for a bounce back. And man, what a great spot for their offense at home in the Jerry world. And they've got the Atlanta Falcons coming to town. We know Amari Cooper loves to play in Dallas. You look at his home road splits since he's become a Dallas Cowboy. Him and Dak Prescott just love playing on this fast track. 6,200 for Amari Cooper. I know everyone's hot about CeeDee Lamb, and I'm not even down on CeeDee Lamb at 7K either, but this is a really, really cheap price for Amari Cooper. You know, you can talk about floor fantasy expectations. Yeah, he throws in the 5-point games. I get it. This has been Amari Cooper through his entire career. But you know what he does every third or fourth game, too? He goes for like 30 points, and they almost always happen in these kind of spots at home against Atlanta. Bottom tier pass defense. I get they beat Trevor Siemian last week, but it's not going to happen this week. I think Amari Cooper's due for a big one, and he's way too cheap in my opinion here, just given the matchup.
Pearce, who do you think is due for a big one at wide receiver this week?
I had Lockett at 6,500. He had a big one in his last game. He's similar to Cooper in that he can have these huge games and then kind of disappear. It's just the way that Seattle plays. It's either him or Metcalf that goes off, and then it's also the way that Wilson plays. Sometimes he takes these deep passes. Green Bay's secondary has struggled this season with Jair Alexander being out. Eric Stokes, their first-round pick, is questionable. Kevin King's going to play, but that's a good thing for the opposing team. They've allowed 6 40-plus yard passes, and that's always something we want to get from Seattle, is their deep passes. Against the Green Bay pass DVOA that ranks 18th. He caught 12 of his 13 targets with Geno at quarterback in his last game for 146 yards against Jacksonville. I know it's a different quarterback, but hey, that game looks pretty good now. A big performance against Jacksonville. We might have laughed at it a couple weeks ago. Now, hey, maybe there's something there.
All right, Garion, who do you have your eye on at wide receiver?
Gotta pick on America's team.
Yeah, I know. Yep, I've heard it. Dude, and you know what? The DK account has this odd obsession on Twitter about just tweeting negative slander towards the Jaguars. I will no longer stand for it, but go ahead, Garion.
That's fair. We can unfollow together in protest.
Oh, yes, let's do it.
Text you after the show.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Michael Pittman. It's a weird chicken and the egg situation when we talk about wide receivers and their value. They need to score touchdowns to reach value, but at the same time, if they score too many touchdowns, you're like, well, touchdown regression is around the corner, so I can't really talk about Michael Pittman. He scored 5 touchdowns in his last 5 games. That's not sustainable. He's not a guy who's going to score 18 touchdowns in a season. However, when you look at the criteria of guys who should be scoring a lot of touchdowns, Pittman does fit that classification. He's one of just 8 qualified players in football who has at least a 30% target share inside the red zone. So he should be scoring touchdowns. So I'm not all that afraid that they're suddenly going to dry up, especially against a Jaguars team that has been shredded by opposing wide receivers, as long as those wide receivers do not play for the Buffalo Bills. So I think we see Jacksonville's defense regress to the mean in Week 10, and I think Michael Pittman, who again has just been a volume machine the past 4 or 5 weeks, he's going to continue to cook.